Hi everyone, welcome back to 33 Founders. Chase and I are delighted to be with the co-founders of AccelFoods this morning. Thanks so much for joining us, Jordan and Lauren.
Thank you for having us.
So I think my favorite description of you guys so far is an accelerator of hipster snack startups. So can we start with you guys just sharing a little bit about AccelFoods and how you guys are empowering foodrepreneurs? Is that the word, foodrepreneur?
Foodpreneurs.
Okay.
Sure. So we are an accelerator. We work with 4 companies at a time in our first and second classes of AccelFoods, and we really consider ourselves a platform of engaged support. So we offer engaged support from a hands-on team, an operating team, a network of mentors. We have 100 plus experts in the food space, as well as engaged support from our strategic partners, which includes best-in-class service providers in the space. And each of those elements come together to really support the brands in a very hands-on way. And in addition to that engaged support, we also provide some funding to the companies as well.
From a dedicated investment fund that we raised last fall.
Great. So let's say I have a great product and I've had my family and my friends try it and they love it too, and everyone's telling me, Jenna, you got to go out and sell these cookies. What's the first step a food entrepreneur needs to make?
It depends on the path that you plan to take. You know, if you want to scale through traditional retail, you'll need to set up manufacturing that will put you in a position to work with those retailers. So typically that comes in the form currently of co-packers, which are contract manufacturers, and it's finding somebody to manufacture your product in compliance with all the regulations required. There are food entrepreneurs who self-manufacture, but then they have the other level of quality controls that they need to put in place and monitoring in order to get through traditional retail channels.
And often the additional cost associated with scaling, as you know, machinery can be extremely costly in the space.
And that really comes on the manufacturing side. You know, clearly a packaging will need to be developed. There'll have to be a label that's compliant with all federal requirements. So you'll have to have your ingredient list reviewed and, you know, a claims analysis done. You know, obviously on the corporate side, you need to set up an entity and be a formal corporation. You'll need to get a tax ID and set up financials so that you can sort of track your receivables and expenses. You'll want to think about things like trademarking. You know, clearly, if you have a great name and a great brand, you're going to want to protect it so that as you build your business, you own your brand. You'll want to think about a marketing plan. You know, how will you activate your consumers? You know, what will be your strategy?
And who is your consumer? You know, I think one of the hardest things to pinpoint early on is, you know, who is my core consumer? You know, what motivates them to purchase and what motivates them to repurchase. And so you know, if you can really pinpoint who your consumer is, you can create a product and a brand that really speaks to them.
So as you talk about pinpointing a consumer, it really makes me think. So let's say you have a product and it's an ice cream. Really everybody can like ice cream. But let's say it's, you know, vegan, gluten-free ice cream. Do you think it's best to have a niche market, or is it better to market to everyone?
You know, I think that's something that really can change over time as your business grows. I think early on it's important to differentiate your business. You know, why should someone pick up your product versus the other product on the shelf? And even before that, why should a retailer make room in the freezer for your ice cream, you know, when there's such limited space in that freezer? So the key thing is to be able to really differentiate your product and explain to the retailer and the consumer why there's a need for it.
And I think that there is definitely a place for a niche product. I think that, you know, one of the things we look at is, can that product then scale into a broader platform? So you think about start small and then, you know, expand as you grow your business and into different formats, different delivery methods, different flavors. You know, whatever you know, take XO, for example. It's one of our portfolio companies. You know, right now they're in the bar format. It's a cricket flour-based protein bar. But you'll think about the extensions of that is, you know, will you be expanding with cricket flour? Will you be expanding into different formats? You know, is the bar the only place for cricket flour on the shelf?
Absolutely. So that really leads me to the next question I want to ask you guys, which is perfect because VCs are now funding food startups more than ever before. What are 3 things that food entrepreneurs can do for their product to stand out at that venture capital meeting?
Aside from using crickets.
There are 3 things are you need to have an extremely well put together presentation that speaks about your business and the plans that you have, and it's very well designed. And I don't mean design just from a creative perspective, but a thoughtful deck is what we would say. You need to have a management team that is a founding team that people want to invest in. We always say at AccelFoods it's about the jockeys, and that's what VCs are looking for as well. On the third side is I think that you need to be tapping into a market and have a scalable product that people see the vision ahead for a very high growth brand.
And if I could add a fourth, I would say, you really need to have a grasp on your financials and understand, and this, I'm the finance nerd of the AccelFoods team, so it always comes down to numbers for me, but
I'm budgets.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have a grasp on your financials and understand, what are going to be the key drivers for reaching your revenue targets, and what are going to be the key drivers for attaining a gross margin number that's going to be attractive for your business in the long run.
I think that I think it's really important that founders realize that the time is really precious that you have in front of investors, and you need to put your best foot forward in its entirety right away. And you're making that impression from the moment you reach out to that investor or they reach out to you. So there are really no second opportunities to make that first impression. So you want to be thinking through your presentation and your expression of your business as much as possible for that initial set of meetings.
So here's a small question to go with that. Can you bring your product to the meeting with you, or do you suggest going presentation first?
Absolutely bring your product.
Your swag.
The number one thing, is that the product has to taste good. That's a given. People need to, when they sample your product, want to buy it. If they sample your product and never want to taste that again, you're not going to get very far. And so investors want to know that your product has legs itself.
And they're going to want to hold the product. CPG, it's a tangible product. It's different than tech. People are going to want to hold it. They're going to want to look at it. They're going to want to taste it. They'll want to smell it. They're going to have a different experience altogether with the investment opportunity than they would if you were just a sort of eyeballs on a screen building a tech business.
Absolutely.
So now let's say there's a foodpreneur who has those 4 qualities that you touched on and their food tastes phenomenal. How can they increase their chances of getting a spot in class 3?
Well, you first have to start by applying. Applications are rolling now. Come find us.
No one's ever been accepted that didn't apply.
Doesn't work that way. I think, apply and start with a really thoughtful description of your business, and really put your best foot forward. We too are investors, so we read the applications very carefully. And definitely make sure that all the information is current that you provide. There's a little bit of an obstacle if we receive financials that are outdated, or a part of an application comes in one format versus another. Make sure we've received samples. Samples are included as part of the application deadline. We too need to taste and feel and smell the product.
I think the biggest thing is just reach out. We really do view the companies that we work with as partners, and we look to build a lasting partnership with every company that comes through the accelerator. And that's kind of the first key step. Do we feel like we can build a partnership with this entrepreneur, with this business? So a lot of it is the kind of personal connection that we feel as we get to know the entrepreneur.
Right. And I know that partnering up well is absolutely vital for food startups. So what does a food startup or any startup look like at the stage where they're ready to seek these partnerships?
For AccelFoods, it's probably about when you realize that you need help and that you've hit an inflection point in your business and that the business is evolving very quickly around you. We always say there are a lot of organizations out there for, to help support you financially. There are investments, investment opportunities in a variety of different ways. You can find angel investors, there's crowdfunding, there's institutional investors. But the truth is AccelFoods is much more about the operational support. So the companies that come to us are really looking to make changes so that they can scale the business. They see funding as a part of that business, but it's not the component that they're as focused on. our businesses tend to be growing extremely well, and they're not necessarily as worried so much about securing investors. They're more worried about making sure that the business can grow in the way that they hope that it will.
Jordan, you've expressed before that getting food from point A to point B is one of the primary reasons that the two of you started AccelFoods. What logistic advice, though packaging, shipping, can you give to food startups who are working to get their foot in the door at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or any of these stores?
I think that was Lauren who said it, so I'm going to give her the response.
I think that often those challenges can be very product specific. There are companies that need a frozen distribution chain. There are companies that have concerns with product melting in the heat in the summer. It really is it can be a very specific challenge depending on the product and the business and what kind of retailer you're going to. Are you a beverage and do you need a DSD distribution partner? But what we try to do in the platform is bring together the partners who can really help the companies figure out how to overcome the challenges on the distribution side that are most prevalent for them. So, we partnered with UNFI, United Natural Foods, which is the largest natural and organic distributor in the country. We've partnered with Unisource on the logistics and fulfillment side. These are organizations that really offer best-in-class services and for our entrepreneurs a tremendous amount of time and guidance in their areas and really give that individual, unique perspective for each company that we're working with.
So selling actual products is pretty hard, but selling perishable things is way harder. And I mean, you don't get the rapidly increasing margins that, say, a software business would get when scaling. So in your experience with mentoring and learning aside all of these companies, what are some of the ways that you've seen them overcome this?
Well, if you are a company producing a fresh product, there is a lot of hope yet because the retailers are clamoring for new products that are classified as fresh. So that's just something to know. I think that, you have to balance out shelf life versus, the rest of the mission of the business. Clearly there are moments where entrepreneurs make changes to their formulation and they make compromises in sort of the design of the product itself to accommodate scaling. And that is an inevitable part of the process. But it's knowing also and staying true to your brand and your mission and your purpose and, not compromising beyond a point that makes you comfortable.
Absolutely. And Lauren, like you said before, you're in charge of the finances at AccelFoods. What advice can you give to any startup about how to finance and when they can take the leap to invest in marketing or a larger team?
I think ultimately the biggest piece of advice that I would give any entrepreneur in this space is make sure that you have a clear handle on when cash is coming in and when cash is going out of your business. And that's not always the same as when you're booking revenues and when you're booking costs to your business. So make sure you understand, when you deliver product to your distributor, at what point can you expect that receivable to be, filled to you? At what point can you expect to see cash in your bank account? Because that will dictate your ability to spend on, everything else. So that's the first thing that I would say needs to be a very consistent thing that you're working on. In terms of timing on spending on other things like marketing, for example, I think that again is sort of very company specific. I will say that, you should never spend in a way that prevents you from being able to get product to the retailer, because the worst, position you can be in is having retailers call you and say, we ran out of product, and you not being able to run production to get them new product. So you always have to keep your customer, which, in this case is your distributor and your retailer, at the forefront of your mind to make sure that you can always service their needs first.
Speaking of marketing, go ahead, Jordan.
No, and I think that you can't underestimate also the amount of receivables that'll be coming in. It's really important. A lot of entrepreneurs think if they sell product for $1, that at some point they'll get $1 back. But that's not typically how it works when you bake in the costs associated, the fees associated with the distribution, on both the retailer side, the distributor side, and often a broker network as well. So you have to really think about cash flow a little bit differently than you might have in a previous career.
And speaking of marketing, what do you guys think is the best way to market a new product? in the food industry?
In a disruptive way.
Let's go for that.
Yeah, I think that, be disruptive and be innovative, capture people's attention. There are a lot of different strategies that, people employ in terms of marketing new products. But, if you're doing something innovative, unique, disruptive, you will always, have a higher chance of attracting attention.
And a lot of your companies are doing that. Can you share some of their strategies?
Well, Four Sigma just showed us one.
That's very true.
The video they sent us instantly was sent out by us. So, I think that every company has unique ways to market themselves. We see, clearly with Four Sigma, marketing and education is really important in their own campaign to educate people about the impact of mushrooms. Likewise, EXO has a similar mission in terms of educating people about edible insects.
Yeah, I think that for many of these companies early on, they're also identifying who their core kind of target consumer is and going hard after that consumer. So as Jordan mentioned, EXO, they're spending a lot of time focused on, individuals for whom the bar that they create suits their diet needs. So for them, they're looking at CrossFitters and, paleo dieters, people like that for whom options are often limited, and their bar can be a great solution. On a flip side, Wynate, for example, they are a unique product in that they're, a coffee-based mixer in a can that you can get in a bar. And you walk into a bar that they're in, and there is Wynate stuff all over the bar. There's posters, there's, stuff on the bar itself. There's menus and coasters, and they really show you how to use the product, which I think is important too. So, the marketing, as Jordan said, should be disruptive, and it should also translate into usage. And I think that, those are two great examples of how our companies are doing that.
But even, I think Evoke, which might have a more typical path in certain ways, it's directed towards athletes, and so when you think about their marketing strategy is to target athletic events, and I think that it's a muesli product, so you wouldn't necessarily initially think to connect those, the athletic consumer with a breakfast item, but it's a fit for their brand.
Can we end with you telling us about the 4 startups who are in class 2 so we can have our viewers go out and try these great products?
Sure.
Absolutely. Iconic is a New Orleans-based beverage. It's a protein drink, really kind of more a meal replacement beverage. It's low calorie, by comparison to competitors. It's almost gender agnostic in that it's not directed solely to men. It is, an appealing product for women as well. 20 grams of protein satisfies your daily fiber in 1 serving.
Cocomels. Cocomels is a Boulder, Colorado-based company. It's a dairy-free coconut milk-based caramel. They have a variety of caramel flavors, but there's a naked version, which is just the caramel, and a chocolate-covered version, which is phenomenal. And they're really a great option for, dairy-free, gluten-free indulgence.
Non-GMO
everything.
Vegan. Everything kosher. Yeah. Evoke is what we fondly call the bare naked of muesli, disrupting breakfast and bringing muesli to the forefront of a new consumer.
And Four Sigma Foods is a mushroom tea enhancer for hot beverages. It is packed with health benefits, really outweighs the benefits that you would typically find in a similar pill format mushroom product, and tastes phenomenal and can be used, with hot beverages or mixed into smoothies, really anything.
Great. And most of all, you can join the shroom army.
Yes, with a lot of fun guys.
All right.
So, for somebody who's looking to apply to AccelFoods, or just somebody who wants to stay up to date with the company, what's the best way for them to do that?
On our website, there's an application. It says apply now, and I believe it's on the top right corner. So click on the link.
And there's also a contact area on the website too.
Great. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.